I have the pleasure of having Charles Floate again. And Charles, what's the next big thing you're working on after PressWiz?
Damn, I can't tell you. That's the problem. No, I'm only joking. I'll give you the overview without going into too much detail, because give it 3 to 4 weeks and everyone's going to see the first thing anyway. I've now created an organization with my original team and then a couple of the guys as well. We're basically creating several projects at the same time. I'm the overseer of everything, and then I have kind of individual team captain for their respective projects, with Udish as kind of the overall manager of everything. The next project that's coming out is not anything to do with SEO. It's its own AI project. It's an own AI company, AI tool. So I'm looking forward to this because it's the first time I've ever generated anything besides my family business that is non-SEO that will hopefully become a $1 million company.
Brilliant. Excited to see that. I'm glad you're away from SEO services. Otherwise, there's no hope for us. All right, let's jump into our most important question of this podcast. What are your top 3 ranking factors to rank in Google AI mode?
In Google AI mode versus AI overviews? Yeah, AI mode, I will come with one that nobody else is going to come out with. And I am not sure if it is the number one factor, because it is the number one factor in instances, if that makes sense. So I will go with personalization. And this is because almost everybody using AI mode is logged in. I think when we looked at the last stats, it was 98% of sessions using AI mode were logged in. And that means that 98 sessions are going to have some level of personalization built in because of how AI mode works. As a fantastic example of this, Garrett Sussman did a case study where he ended up creating 4 different personas, and he put into one of the personas, which was, he thought this was his persona account. It wasn't, it was his own account. And it came back with a very personalized nature to him. He put in, what are the best streaming sites, right? What are the best streaming services? And it came back with the best streaming services for kids. And he's like, that's weird. And then he looked in the reasoning, and it's because he has a daughter. And the AI mode had changed the query by identifying that he has a daughter, and that the most of the streaming that he's watching is family entertainment. And that it doesn't just need to have a streaming service that is the best streaming service, but it needs to be the best streaming service for his family viewing as well. So that personalization completely changed that entire query's context, sourcing, everything. And I don't see any other factor really doing that.
So you said the number one factor for you is personalization. To implement it, how would you do that?
That's the difficult thing, right? Like, effectively, there's 3 major areas that the personalization, or Google calls it Google Personal Intelligence. That's what it's actually called. And there's 3 layers to it that are the 3 core layers. The first one is your email. So any email inbox you're getting, and the way that you can effectively market that is email marketing, right?
Are you saying you can influence AI mode results by doing an email blast or sending newsletters?
Yes. So Garrett has tested this. I have tested this. Right? You can actually, so this is also where it becomes slightly concerning. It doesn't differentiate between your spam inbox currently either. So it still actually pulls in your spam inbox. So theoretically, right, and we have come up with this kind of concept, you could just spam blast an email list that you scrape, and that would be the effective personalization marketing for the email layer of AI mode, right? And that would work. I do believe that, yes, in the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, Google's probably going to at least remove the spam box as a contributing factor to your personal intelligence. That doesn't make a lot of logical sense to even have as a factor, but there are still going to be ways that you can implement that email marketing. And obviously, I think the bigger budgets, the bigger lists, the bigger companies that you have, theoretically, the more that shifts into that. There are 2 other layers though. One is photos, which should, I think, concern people's privacy even more. Garrett, again, did a fantastic case study where he decided to try and get his query personalized for running shoes. So he went and took a bunch of photos with him in a running shoe store, and then it personalized the query to A, you should go back to that store, and B, these are the brands that you like because the photos are in the background of your photos. Again, it's scary, kind of very invasive anti-privacy stuff, which personally, my own personal opinion stuff, I'm very against. But these are new opportunities for marketing layers to basically be added on the browsing history and your engagement with the wider web. That one, obviously, you can't really optimize user behavior to visit certain websites or certain things for, unless, you have like control of their computer or something. Like, again, these kind of more grandiose manipulative style studies or something. Like, it's kind of opening the floodgates for bad actors, in my opinion, as well.
What would be the 2 other ranking factors for AI mode after personalization?
So the Number two will probably still be some form of grounding and retrieval. Gemini and AI mode really like pulling in Google grounding. It's pretty obvious why. It's the biggest indexing source in the world, and their models aren't fresh, right? They're always going to have a 12-month training data cutoff or something along those lines. So they want to be making sure that that additional fresh information is there as much as possible. And obviously that ranking factor is very heavily dependent on the query. If your query is about what's happening with the Iran war or something, then obviously it's going to be pulling in as many new phrases as possible. If it's talking about what happened to the World Cup 1998, it's probably going to be pulling Wikipedia and static evergreen pages.
Do you see similarities between Gemini AI overviews and Google AI mode?
I don't actually.
Right.
I think they're fairly different. And I think that's because of the underlying model architecture. So AI overviews use a custom fine-tuned Gemini Flash 3 model, whereas depending on the AI mode, it's going to default to the current Gemini 3.5 Pro, whatever model it's using at the moment. But those two models are very, very different. In how they interact with data, because AI mode gets huge amounts of context versus AI mode's very limited kind of snippet extraction and parsing. And B, also in just the intelligence layer as well. The ability that AI mode has to reason and think through things and stuff like that. Gemini 3 Flash model lets the reasoning and the decision making much more on the content it's using and embedding rather than creating that itself and double checking and kind of having the arbitration layer to actually see if this is true or not.
So in terms of difficulty ranking across those three, Gemini versus AI overviews versus AI mode, which of these three models will be the easiest? How would you grade them in terms of difficulty to rank and manipulate?
AI mode is very much dependent on the user. If that user is a power user, that they're searching 100 searches a day, visiting 1,000 pages a day on the websites and stuff like that, then its personalization is going to start taking over some of the other optimization, broader generic work that we are doing as SEOs. However, it massively depends on the query as well and kind of the context and everything and stuff. I think AI overviews are super easy to manipulate, super easy to rank in for smaller queries, right? Just because it's powered by the Blue Links algorithm. So if you can get pages in the Blue Links algorithm, which I can do like that, right? Then I'm going to get my pages sourced and retrieved and output by the AI overview. And I've just done that as an experiment, which I showed you a second ago. And I'll be releasing to the public soon enough. With AI mode, again, if there is personalization, if that user power use, if there's all these other things coming in, if they've even engaged with AI mode a ton of times, that has all the memory and context and history and stuff, then all of that tends to override a lot of the grounding and the retrieval and the kind of SERP consensus that is being pushed into the output. You have to be doing so many additional layers of marketing to be able to be pushed into images, emails, browsing history, social media plans. All of these things aren't SEO anymore, right? And that means that your budget essentially has to be the $1 million brand corporate crazy marketing company.
You talked about consensus, and we've been talking about consensus just for LLM rankings in general across LLMs. When it comes to AI overviews, do you think consensus is a very big play over there, or is it just you rank in the Blue Links algo and you'll be in AI overviews?
Consensus is literally baked into how models work, right? If you go all the way back to the original Transformers, it's basically reinforcing word connections or token connections. Like this token is going to be the next token because it is so associated with the previous token and the token after it and so on and so forth. That literally means that consensus at a token level is baked into how AI models output text or imagery or whatever it is. So Google introduced consensus to Google's original Blue Links algorithm about 4 years ago. The actual underlying technology for AI is built on consensus. I would say it's even more powerful than the consensus that is in the traditional Google algorithm, and that a lot of the time it takes more to overwrite the existing AI output than it would to overwrite the existing SERP in Google, for example.
Retrieval and grounding, we see it's very strong, especially for ChatGPT, Claude and all. How would you compare the grounding and the retrieval behavior that's on ChatGPT and Claude's side towards Google AI overviews?
Claude is just way more safety aligned than the other models. So it tends to be a lot more distrusting. So it won't surface certain things that it doesn't trust in. But because of that trust, you can actually engineer certain assets, and then it will trust those assets far more than anything else. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where it's like the safety alignment is so good that it means that you can actually manipulate it. Right? Like you can create these like fake docs and fake wikis and fake like fake PDFs and fake change logs and all that kind of stuff, and it believes it 100%. Right? There's no fact checking against it. With AI overviews, there is no fact checking. There's just nothing going on. There is no arbitration layer, essentially. The only arbitration layer is this consensus amongst the trusted sources. Yes, okay, then it's the consensus and this is the output. That's exactly why I can manipulate AI overviews. I don't know if you saw Lily Ray's case study a couple of weeks ago where she did the best SEO expert for as a page. And then she ranked one of the best SEO experts at the best at building sandcastles in the world. And then when you Googled who is the best at building sandcastles, it came up as this SEO. It's the number one best at building sandcastles. That's an exact kind of joke of like how bad it is at actually conceptually understanding stuff. And it's trusted Lily's singular domain so much, right? The trust score and the authority of that domain was so high that the AI overview let it put that into it with just a singular source of truth rather than having a consensus of truth as well.
Do you think EMDs work really well in AI overviews?
Yes and no. We've seen it straight away. There is some anti-spam systems, some sort of systems in AI overviews for fresh domains. So if you register a brand new fresh domain, whatever you do to it within the 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever, I don't have that exact time frame yet because I haven't tested it. But there's a time frame that Google essentially stops you from being able to get into an AI overview. It makes sense. I think it's basically trying to stop fresh news being hijacked by bad actors, and it's fresh events being hijacked by bad actors, that kind of thing. But you can index it for a week, 2 weeks, and generally it will start getting picked up, right? It's just that the first few days, it will just not allow you to index those domains and overviews at all.
What about Google AI mode and Gemini? Do you think EMDs are working well there?
AI mode, not as much because retrieval tends to query fan out in a very different way to AI overviews. AI overview query fan out is much more specific to the context of the query, whereas the AI mode fan out will start subverging into completely different areas and things, trying to find little bits that might be relevant to the context of the query. So you end up with like I said earlier, with the AI mode changing for Garrett, that it didn't change in AI overviews, right? It's the same AI overview for better streaming services, but it massively changed when he put it into AI mode.
Which of the three models, Gemini, AI mode, and AI overviews, are more aggressive with fan outs?
It depends on the query, to be fair, but AI mode is probably the most aggressive with fan outs, whereas OpenAI ChatGPT is probably the most aggressive with sourcing. So I see the most number of sources and references and citations from ChatGPT. Sometimes you'll have like one instant query and you get 55 sources for it, which is just crazy. And a lot of the time, actually, ChatGPT is the only one that tends to, and if it's a non-branded query, still retrieve the same domain more than once. So that only happens in AI mode and AI overview if you're searching that brand's name. So you're searching like, how something about GoDaddy or something about AHF, something like that, then it will start pulling back multiple pages from that brand's site. If you don't mention that brand, generally speaking, it doesn't pull back multiple pages. It will only pull back one. But ChatGPT can and does pull back multiple pages for the same domain. I've seen it happen with a lot of the news partnerships that it's got. It will pull back multiple news stories from the same partnership domain and essentially have it all reinforce each other.
Is there training data involved in AI overview results?
Yes, because of how Gemini Flash works. So even if you go down to token generation, Gemini Flash does token sampling and things like that. That in itself causes randomness and kind of an ability of, well, at any one given point, it could sample a completely different token to what it's been sampling for the last 10 months or something. So there is that kind of inherent change.
But do you think they still rely heavily on live retrieval?
Yes. So AI mode 100% has to rely on live retrieval for basically everything. Its default experience is to analyze the sources, but it still does have some sort of anti-spam systems baked in, some sort of all these sort of things. And that filtering is not at the algorithmic level because those pages are being brought in by the algorithm, but they're not being picked up by the AO view. So there is a mechanic inside of the actual AO view prior to the indexing and caching of the of the traditional algorithm to stop it from being able to be pulled up in the AI overview.
In AI overview results and also AI mode, we see a set of sources that are cited for the answers. What's your take on the fact that there are hundreds other sources that influence the result but did not get cited compared to only the cited sources that are influencing the results and nothing else?
So I've seen sources on the right-hand side of an AI overview that weren't cited in the AI overview. That happens all the time. Again, going back to consensus and reinforcement and things, it's probably a major element there where, okay, this page is the best to cite, but this page actually reinforces that this page is correct. So I'm still going to use it as a source of truth, right? But I'm not going to cite it because this page is better at being cited than this page is. Right. So that will always play some role into it. But I do think that it's probably going to change over time. I guess it's going to be based on how Google is implementing based on user behavior. So if users are engaging massively with X, they're going to boost up X. If they start not using Y, they're going to devalue Y. The same kind of thing that they've been trying to do with the traditional algorithm signals. But now you actually have the user data to be able to simply go, oh no, you just need to change this or reweight this or distribute to this.
So if you don't see your source or your article in the panel or even in the citations sources, does that mean that your particular content wasn't used in influencing the result or training the result?
Yes and no. So yes, because it's not likely used in the end output. So this is the difference, right? Most people in their heads, well, I don't know what most people think, but I'm assuming most people think that the AI collects everything and then just spits it out. But that's not the act. There is some middle ground that happens between the actual sourcing and the arbitration effectively is kind of that middle ground. It's a very difficult question to answer because I'm not sure how Google will move to it.
To build consensus, we are publishing so many articles these days, right? And that's what we are suggesting our clients. That's what we are seeing a lot of other GEO, AEO, SEOs doing. But even if you publish 100, 200 articles to influence the overall consensus, only a handful of those articles get cited or get seen in the panel or seen next to the answers being cited. So is it worth doing that? And the second part is, if you don't see your articles in any of those sources or citations panel, then does that mean your content wasn't used to influence the output?
Okay, so I think from query to middle ground to output, in the middle ground, it can still be using extracts and passages and tokens and sampling and all that kind of thing to build the final output. Even if it doesn't cite or source that, it can still use it as consensus and conclusion. But is it significant data? That's what the actual outcome is. And it likely depends on how many sources it's chosen, right? If it's done what ChatGPT has done, it's chosen 50, and it's citing 15, realistically, you're probably not being an overwhelming significant amount of data in that output. You're maybe 0.2% of the actual total output, right? Maybe less than that, realistically. So I think, yes, it's still worth doing because of long tail variations. That page could get picked up for some random query down the line. It could even be that somebody who's personalized prefers that publication type or even that specific publication over other publications. The AI knows that, so it sources that publication over the one it normally sources. There's a bunch of stuff like that where it can come into play. But in general, I always do SEO by ROI. And if you can't measure the return, which is really difficult with just visibility anyway, then putting effort into pages that are a 20% chance of success, I probably would be putting it into domains that are 50+% chance of success. And we're trying to do that data as we go on. And bear in mind that we're all still in the early days here, pretty much, right? None of us have been doing this for 20 years like we've been doing SEO. And so we're all still collecting data. We're also trying to find out what's working and things like that. And as time has gone on, the more campaigns that have seen success and the more individual pages that have seen success, and this is the main point, the data point that have seen failures, I know for the next campaign what works best and what are the pages that don't work. And especially at a niche level, because a lot of my clients are in iGaming, right? I end up being able to say, oh no, I know this for this specific niche, this specific geo, right? This domain is preferred over this domain. And I can cite 9 different case studies and campaigns because of that, right?
Yeah, I like the term that you use, ROI-based SEO. On that, what's your take on getting included in citations that are being referenced right now versus publishing fresh articles?
Yeah, so you're always going to have an immediate visibility growth hack, right, from the cited article. But the issue that you have is the fresh article is an unquantifiable factor. It could be the current cited page. It could not, right? We don't know until we've done it. And it's one of those kind of Pandora's box experiments that you have to essentially do. And that's what I was saying. The more data that you collect over time, the more you'll be able to make the correct decision every time. But it's really one of those things where unless you have the data, you don't know which is going to perform better. You just know 100% that the cited domain will probably continue to get cited. And thus immediately, unless it's cached, and if it's not cached and you can change that page, then you should theoretically be able to immediately change the query output, as long as, again, that page is a significant part of the overall sourcing.
This can be niche or category dependent, but usually when you're planning out on an average, do you think that going with the kind of citations that are already working, it's better to just replicate that? Or do you think, no, come up with something new? And whether it is the kind of article you're publishing and also the kind of platform where you're publishing. So whether you're publishing it on LinkedIn or on Parasites or YouTube, on a general basis, how do you plan out?
So everything is going to be based on data, right? We have got a bunch of ongoing single variable testing for how we actually optimize individual pages. And then the results are, has that meta title increased? Has the character on that specific schema increased or something like that, right? And then secondarily, it's based on whatever is currently being rewarded by the current iteration of the algorithm. And if there's an algorithm update ongoing or there's one just happened, then we might have a little bit of a delay to know what is the current data set. But usually we have a pretty real-time vision of what parasites are working, what domains are working, what formats and types of content and things are working. And then we kind of reverse engineer that niche if we don't already have that niche's reverse engineered done for a previous campaign, and then build to that based on what it's rewarding, the domains it's rewarding. So sometimes, bear in mind, as an example with Claude will actually randomly start pulling PDFs and like change logs and things like that and stuff. If you can build those or you can edit those and things, Claude prefers that information. It's pulling them for a reason. So go and build that.
Yeah. The way listicles were working so easily ranking your content, has that decreased over time for the current models that we are talking about, AI mode, AI overviews, and Gemini?
Yes. I want to say that the ranking factor of a best listicle has probably somewhat fallen down over the last couple of months because it probably has been targeted by Google. And some of our listicles have dropped when this last spam update happened and things like that. There's not really much other reason because none of the content on the rest of that site had dropped. It was only the best listicles, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you pull it out, there's an outlier reason of why that content fell, and that's the only content that fell. But with that being said, there's also the offset that there's just substantially more being produced now. So is it a volume versus quality reason? So 6 months ago, did we just have much higher quality listicles that could be cited more often? And now we have much lower quality, but a much larger abundance of them. And the AI is starting to be like, okay, well, maybe there's 10 different listicles and they're all not as good quality as the one from 6 months ago. So let's not cite any of them because they don't match the consensus or quality or scoring of the rest of the SERP or the rest of the retrieval. It's one where I think Google has to eventually target it anyway, and they have been taking some actions to target it. But it's also one of the single easiest ways to explicitly tell the AI a co-occurrence, association, consensus of what is best in this industry, and these are the entities in a list, right? So semantic triple, basically.
Have you seen any case studies where comparison articles were able to change biases of LLMs?
Yes, 100%. I've got one ranking right now. If you put link sculpting into Google right now, my article should be cited. I changed the AOV for link sculpting with one article from Presswiz.
I think comparison articles are the next listicles, and let's hope it works for the next 6 months.
And alternative pages, there's so many things that are coming out. It's the same thing with SEO every time, though. When one tactic that works gets publicized, everybody just fucking uses it, like everybody jumps on the hype train and then it gets ruined because SEOs end up ruining everything. Like that's what you figure out in this industry.
Should we target subcategories first before going for the main keyword? So let's say I want to rank for best SEO agency in London, and another SEO agency we offer or cater to multiple niches, e-com, local, SaaS. Is it better to target best SEO agency for, let's say, SaaS right now? And then after you're ranking for that, then you start targeting best SEO agency for e-com and so on. How would you go about it?
100%. If it's a newer business or it's the first time this business is trying to do AI visibility kind of manufacturing, I call it manufacturing, other people will call it campaign building. I tend to go more in the line that you're best off just trying to put the time and effort and energy into building the association with what your business actually is, rather than trying to kind of build broader associations with everything. Right. So
Okay.
as an example, initially with PressWiz, I was trying to get it as the number one link building marketplace. So anytime ChatGPT, Google AI reviews, whatever would say, what is the best link building marketplace? Then that's what we want PressWiz to be there. After that, that's when I'm starting, okay, link building service, link building agency, link building company, link building firm, niche edit service, guest posting service, all of those keywords, they're secondary to the primary association that I wanted to build with the business. And that should be every business, because you need to build that primary association first. Otherwise, you could unintentionally build other associations. And we have got a really good example of this with a client that we were doing, where because their name sounded like something else, and because they hadn't actually done a lot of the proper marketing work, and the former CMO was a kind of gambling CMO who did like swaps pages, and now he's doing SaaS. So it's not massively the same thing. And like his documentation pages for 250 words, things like that need to blow up massively. But because the name sounded so different from the actual class of the software, Google had changed what it did. So Google was saying that this company was, as an example, an email newsletter company. It wasn't. It was an email management company. So it managed people's emails, newsletters, and exactly, instead of actually running the service and things and stuff. So that association is really important to build as early as possible, because you could accidentally build another one that you then have to do 10 times more work to reinforce the real association for.
Based on the example I gave of an SEO agency in London, should we first build content around this is the best SEO agency in London, and then go category wise? Best SEO agency for SaaS, for e-com, and other niches?
100%. Yes. And location authority as well in search does give you some additional brownie points as well, to be fair, right? Like if you are the number one SEO agency in London, you've got the Google My Business profile with the 120 reviews, you've got a bunch of citations, all these kind of things. Those, eventually get put into training data somewhere along the lines anyway, just because of the way Common Crawl and everything works, and how these training companies absorb the internet, or how these scraping companies absorb the internet. And secondarily, it works because of the actual user as well. They're reinforced by that decision as well, even more so.
So don't you think for newer brands, if they want to target the main keyword, as I said, brand new SEO agency in London, and they straight up want to start targeting best SEO agency in London, first of all, it'll be very difficult for them to rank in Google or AI mode or AI overviews for the first few months. And then because they have not targeted any category, by the time they start targeting those categories, it will be probably too late or maybe too confusing for Google to understand what they're doing. What's your take on that?
I would still niche down anyway. So I would be niche SaaS SEO agency in London, right? It doesn't mean that your homepage can't be SEO agency in London. It just means that you have most of your other pages that you're a SaaS SEO agency as well. But again, it depends. Are you an agency in London, or are you a SaaS SEO agency? This is the thing. You have to have a primary association in AI, because you can be a SaaS agency in London, right? But that's a semantic triple. It's not a primary association. There's different associations going on in that context.
So to make it simple to understand, stick with your primary category first and then add others?
Yeah, exactly. I would always recommend doing the whole topical mapping of your actual main site first, right? So build out all of those pages first. Build the SaaS agency, build the SEO agency London, build the who is your founder, about who is, case studies. Every single page for your site should be indexed day one and should be the best quality possible. But external references initially need to be built to your primary association. So your citations, your social profiles, all that kind of stuff, they need to be built to primary association. And I've seen it several times now bite people in the ass, because it's ended up associating them with something completely differently. And also, that's the thing. If it does associate you with something differently, it takes time to fix that, because of caching and because of how associations in the thing, reinforcement learning. There's so many different systems that are playing into it, that once you get associated with X, it's much, much more difficult to change that association after that.
Have you played around with antonyms, or have you seen someone else do antonym style articles and changing consensus in favor of your brand?
Yes, I have, but the styles that they've done it tends not work as well, because they just AI generate the posts instead of actually researching the SERP, building off of what the SERP is saying, and then sticking your brand on top of that. So you match the consensus 99%, and then the 1% is your brand is now number one, right? That's how it should be done. But most people are just like, create me an after best listicle, put me number one. My competitors are these competitors, but they've never even checked what Google is ranking, right?
My second last question, what are some other black hat AI manipulation tactics for AI overviews, AI mode, and Gemini?
Yeah, cloaking still works. So you can actually like cloak text and cloak things and stuff. URL capitalization works with some of Google's systems.
What, really?
Yeah. So it actually doesn't so it will absorb the URL differently and things and stuff depending on URL capitalization. So they are fixing a lot of the black hat. Again, this is all from the prompt injection hacker community. So this isn't even from like an SEO, black hat SEO stuff. This is from like the red teams in Discord trying to inject the models to like get them to put out meth recipes and like how to make bombs and stuff and things like that. It's like the actual, like, this isn't SEO anymore. This is like life and death stuff. But like, this is where you get real insight into like how the AI models are actually performing.
What's the next big case study you are planning to launch in the LLM AI space?
So I have two, but I'm not sure which one is coming out. I showed you them a little bit earlier. One of them is my new technique that I've called parallel discoverability, and the other one is me manipulating AI overviews. I'm not sure which one comes out first. I'm pretty sure it'll probably be parallel discoverability, but we shall see. You've got two though to look forward to.
Thank you so much, Charles. Really appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jabez. Yeah, appreciate it.